motorized groups of people under the rule of the regime, marking houses with X, like literally with spray paint, marking their doors as if they were, as if this was Germany in the 1940s. Okay, this is persecution to the highest level. You ready? You ready to go a whole 20 to 40 minutes in English?
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay, then let's go and start with good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Efecto Dialogo, or the Dialogue Effect. We're doing this episode in English on purpose and with a purpose. Many of you may know what the situation is in Venezuela currently. Our intention of doing this episode in English is so that all of you who may be following around the news regarding what is happening in Venezuela but may not necessarily speak Spanish may understand what is happening from us. So that is the idea, to inform and to summarize so that we continue to keep the issue alive, and it's like a little pebble in the lake, if you will, of this whole movement.
Also, the second reason why we want to do this in English is because we know that there's a lot of people that are completely interested, that are Spanish speakers, but they cannot find any content on internet that speaks volumes of what is happening in Venezuela. So for all you guys, Spanish speakers that have friends that speak English or that cannot and they don't relate to Spanish.
They do not understand Spanish, and you've been looking at resources to send them so that they can understand what is happening. This is our best try to be that resource.
So without further ado,
I think we should start with a summary of what has happened in the past month almost.
Month? Well,
this is more like 3 weeks now, but yeah.
Yeah, but so why this is such a difference? Like, Venezuela has been on a scope and trying to figure out what has been happening for the last, at least, I would say, fairly between like 2017 all the way up to here, especially on 2019 and all the protests that went about it. I mean, not to cut it short, but 8 million Venezuelans have left the country, and like the ambassador of Uruguay said on the OAS, we're not doing tourism, like long-term tourism. That's not the reason that we are outside. Like,
yeah, that was kind of ridiculous too.
So
like the idea of like, why are 8 million Venezuelans out of the country? Well, it ain't for tourism. There is a proper reason. But
there's a crisis.
There is a crisis.
So we're facing the biggest humanitarian crisis in the entire Western Hemisphere, and we're not even a war zone, and we have numbers of displaced people that are even bigger of the civil war in Syria. So you can imagine the proportion of the mess that we are right now. So trying to get out of this mess is this election that has been failed. Like, it's not even like a true election. It has been a facade of an election that had a lot of irregularities. Like, the main opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, was unhabilitated by the Supreme Court, and she tried to get a replacement of her trust, and just because it was the replacement, they didn't let Corina Lloris to get there. And for some luck, because this is the only way, like, Edmundo Gonzalez was already registered as a candidate, and with a ton of irregularities prior to the election, meaning people being detained, business getting being foreclosed because they held like some of the opposition leaders, or like trying to do meetings or just to rest on a hotel, they were being like either detained or foreclosed, not allowing the opposition candidates to travel freely through the entire country. Like they have to do it through the ground or water. They couldn't travel by air.
So through buses, through boats.
And not only that, they were doing actually barricades and any type of shenanigans just to get them not to get to their destinations. And somehow they managed to pull through. So the elections happened.
Sorry that I interrupt, but there's some incredible videos of just the motorcades and the when I say motorcades, I don't want you to think of like the U.S. president motorcade. I want you to think more like the patrol of motorcycles, almost like a motorcycle gang, amount of different type of motorcycle scooters, by the hundreds,
AKA
accompanying
the empire,
accompanying Maria Corina so that she could get to her destinations, Maria Corina and Edmundo, which is just, it's been Venezuela. It has been for those of us who grew up there and are from there. No, we all know that there's a lot of motorcycles all around. The reason why it's one of the easiest modes of transportation. However, the motorcycle has always been a synonym for repression or the government. For the SEBIN, for the
colectivos,
colectivos,
círculos bolivarianos, the Bolivarian circles and stuff like that became like, in other words, organized
all forces
crime.
From the government.
Yeah, that was so. But let's don't jump.
But anyway,
don't skip. So the elections happen. These elections were supposed to happen on November. That's the constitutional scheduling. And they decided to put it on purpose on July 28th, that it was the birthday of Hugo Chavez, the prior precursor of the socialism in the 21st century. And the one who managed to get this on the, like, that just meant, like, Venezuela was not doing great prior to Chavez, but after Chavez, we just jump out of a cliff.
Yeah.
So the election happened, but Maria Corina managed to do a thing that was not like it was one of her first like ideas when she started politics, and it was used by the Chavismo like in the 2015 elections, that it was to print the election acts that managed to make the totalization of the votes that were scrutinized.
I think we have to get into that. There's at each voting center, there is a receipt, if you will, or like
I think there's a receipt
which summarizes all the votes, not by name but by the amount that each candidate received at that specific location or machine. I'm not quite certain.
Yeah, machine.
Okay, then
each center of voting.
These are the famous actas. If you've seen the news and you keep looking and you say, show the actas. Well, these are that. They are receipts that have a QR code. They're verified. They're in the system.
They have signatures of the witnesses.
Correct,
that were there.
There are witnesses for this, and they are signed. But so on. Go on.
So what she managed to pull off is that she managed to get a totalization center on a webpage to get every single, or at least
as many as she could.
Yeah, as many as she could. Like at the end, she has been totalizing above 80% of the totalization.
Yeah, last time I checked, it was 82.
Yeah. So the CNE, that is like the Council of the National Council of Elections, just announced like Nicolás Maduro won.
Right.
And it was like 51-42, yada yada yada. Then you start like doing the statistics of the number that they start like to explain. They were like mathematically perfect, which statistically is really improbable. But Maria Corina is like launched the webpage, and it's like, hey, we actually beat you almost 3-1 in votes.
Mm-hmm.
This election, like this announcement that you're doing are not only illegitimate, you're just screwing over the Venezuelan people and their right to vote, and they just want you out. And everything has evolved into the explosion of massive protests, not only in Venezuela, but as you saw last Saturday, there were protests in over 330 cities around the world.
Correct.
Those 8 million that are around the world, they have been like helping like share the news of what is happening. Now, what has occurred afterwards? The amount of repression has escalated in levels unprecedented in Venezuela. Like the regime managed to always use violence, but on the level that they done in that short amount of time of the protest has been unseen. Almost 2,000 detainees without due process,
with over 23 deaths,
or there's no protection, or that you can get like a proper defense. Generic crimes of like hate crimes and like incentivizing terrorism and hate, and a lot of political prisoners. Like most of politicians that have been raising against the government has been detained. One of those, for example, has been ex-senator, equivalent to a senator, Americo de Gracia, that he was like, when he was a senator, he actually got beat up by the Chavismo, like got hit in the head with a construction rod, fractured ribs, everything. So we're seeing like just like
so that people understand. Yeah, so that people understand, this is, think of persecution at its highest level. This is when I tell you this, I'm trying not to exaggerate what we're seeing in the videos and what comes out of the videos that we see, but we are seeing like motorized groups of people under the rule of the regime marking houses with X's, like literally with spray paint, marking their doors as if they were as if this was Germany in the 1940s. Okay.
Yeah, basically
this is persecution to the highest level.
Yeah, systematically, and just like looking for a way that if you're against the regime, your life is at stake.
Correct. So a lot of people have mentioned, and I'm going to open a parenthesis here. A lot of people are scared that things are dying down. Things are not dying down. The thing is that we have the regime now wanting to block X. They're trying to block WhatsApp.
They're blocking most social medias. That like
they're
now,
blocking
like,
social media so that no news can come out of the country. People are being persecuted, stopped in bus stops, and asked to be checked on their phones to see if they have been posting or if they participated in
if they
protests.
have anything. No, not even that. If they have a shared message that they receive from anyone that is something against the regime, you go to jail. Like as easy as that. Like
the amount of passports that they've canceled.
Oh yeah, they're like annulling passwords, especially of human rights defenders and protectors and advocates. They're being suspended or annual, so it's easier for them to catch them on the spot in the airplane. On the airports, sorry. The airports has been all militarized, and again, the main issue right now is that people think, as you're saying, that they're dying down. It's just like the amount of repression that and censorship that is going on. It is on unprecedented levels. Like, you're seeing VPNs actually giving their service for free to help bring connectivity back and people to get a better idea of what is happening. But it is definitely a dire situation. But at the same time that we're seeing all this struggle and and just like unmeasured amount of violence, there's been hope. There's hope. There is a lot, like there's the changing a lot of the positions of international governments, recognizing the results of the elections that Maria has stated. They have managed to get recognition of international organizations to show, like to pressure the government to show what is happening and what's going on with the actual results, because they most of the centers that managed to review the results, that was a UN expert group and the Carter Center, they both in their report says that the results are just not credible, and the
results that Maria Corina is showing through her website, which, by the way, let's explain a little bit about what is actually this website. This website is not just numbers, okay? We're talking about the receipts, okay? The actas. These receipts were digitalized. They were scanned by all the... So what happened during July 28th, which was the day of the elections, is that the how do you say testigos again?
The witnesses.
The witnesses that Maria Corina had in place.
It's will have been like some sort of someone testifying or witnessing or auditing the results.
So let's call it auditors then. Yeah, I think an auditor is more accurate. So the auditors that Maria Corina had in place actually they were organized. They did their homework and they prepared. They grabbed the receipts and they scanned them, sent them to a database where Maria Corina could place these in a website showing you by state, by city, by municipality, by center of by voting center, the precise receipt of how many votes were in that machine and in that precise location. And these are verified. They have the QR codes, they have their signatures from the auditors from both parties. And
so
it's a hell of a lot of work that she did. They managed to do.
But there was also another thing that happened spontaneous with those acts or those receipts, is that the citizens start, like the precedents of the voting centers, when they close, by Venezuelan law, the public can go and be witness of what is happening, and people were actually recording the public announcements of the results of those chairs. Correct. That can actually be correlate to the results that are being posted on the webpage. So there's a lot of accumulation of truth. Now the issue is the main issue is that you all know on the news oh, Venezuela is a narco dictatorship, yada yada yada. How do you eat that? Well, I'm gonna try to explain it to you as easy as possible. So 25% of the entire illegal drug supply of the world goes through Venezuela. As easy as that. Mm-hmm. And it is because after the oil reserves had been depleted because of all the supposed investment they should do to all the oil rigs and the exploitation of oil and so on and so on. They didn't do it. They stole it. The money never appeared. So what they start to rely was to help them to pay, for example, the colectivos and to the high ranks, the highest ranks of the military. They started getting them into selling or promoting or allowing to drug trafficking to happen in the country. A lot of people, there's a vile, a really ill-intended incentive that a lot of the highest rank of the military, they were not just interested of playing ball with the opposition. But this is just the highest part of it, the highest peak of it. I'm making this distinction because I want to make a point later that I believe that on the conclusion is going to be important. Because there has been a call, like, again and again to the military to, join the
right
mundo and do like and be in the right side of history and so on and so forth. Then with those payments, they have managed to also pay the colectivos and the organized crime to keep them under like their control. That's why, like, one of the main issues why Nicolás Maduro is being prosecuted, and a lot of the highest rank of the regime is not because of human rights violation, but it's actually because of drug trafficking and all those related crimes. A lot of the sanctions that a lot of the people always are claiming, no, but the sanctions are the ones that are killing the Venezuelan economy.
Yeah,
that's false because, and I can tell you it's false because most of all the sanctions are not to Venezuela like it happens to Cuba or Iran. It goes directly to the individuals that are related with terrorist financing, drug trafficking, and any type of illicit activities. This is the first time in modern history, I think, that their challenge is not that we have a tyrant in power. It's not the first time that the Western Hemisphere is facing a dictator. It is, though, the first time that we're seeing that you have a tyrant that has also drug lords' power and capacity and doesn't care on how to use like their illegal means to control all the weapons and the use of force to the citizenship. So that's the main issue that we're facing right now as Venezuelans. And that's why it is really important to find ways to communicate with the other part, with the most of the part of the National Guard and with the military forces, because not all are being like part of that drug rings that I mentioned before. But the regime is not stupid. Like, they made 2 coup d'etats attempts prior to getting to power. They are closely related to the G2 Cubano, that is the forces of intelligence and counterintelligence. They have the Wagner group, that is the private military group that Russia and Vladimir Putin has. And they send in there and they infiltrate and try to flip up all the ones that are trying to just flip to the other side to support the opposition. We have seen several detainments and generals of lower ranks just being suspended because of this. And you have also another challenge, that is that the regiments are super divided to avoid that race of arms, and that was made on purpose. So, but there is a situation is that the opposition, and with reason, they have been they have a fear and a phobia to the military, and they just try to avoid it because they have been repressed by them so many times. And why it would be different, right? But this time it's different because it's not like them versus us. Because if you see the elections, and even in Fuerte Tiuna, that is one of the main military complex, most of the votes and initial protests started there. Mm-hmm. So we know for a fact that most of the military is not in favor of this regime, but we need to find ways to get some commitments or some communication to go through, because civil society by itself without the military is not going to be able to just manage to get all the pressure necessary to leave, to the regime to leave.
So that brings me to what I want to say, so that we can bring this conversation to a conclusion, so it doesn't become overwhelming. So then what can we do? So we are doing, in my opinion, we're doing what we can and we must do, which is keep the issue alive, maintain pressure and pressure points, because the more Edu just said about the military complex and how the society without the military will not be able to overturn this situation, or at least not in a way that we may see. There may be a way, but it just history teaches us that when the military gets involved is when change may appear. Maintain pressure on the military, continue pressuring on their consciousness, if you will, continue to call towards their duty.
I mean, there's a great economist, Venezuelan economist from Harvard that is on the Kennedy. His name is Ricardo Hausman, and he made a great tweet or X message. I don't know. But there is a lot of interest of people trying to find a way to get it, like to help create this golden breach or golden parachute to get help, like the regime to just, go and get like your amnesty and just leave us alone.
The rest
and
of your life somewhere else.
The situation is that there's a lot of thinking of how to provide carrots, but they're also forgetting trying to avoid the sticks. And the sticks are actually kind of important right now, because back to what we were saying and what we said before is in the episode in Spanish is that the thing is, like, the turning point in theory is that the regime will be gone when the cost of being in power is higher than leaving power.
Correct.
Like that's and that's, it sounds vague, it sounds bizarre, but what it means is that we as a civil society and international community, we need to find ways to organize ourselves to continue to do pressure. International pressure by itself, it is necessary, but it's not enough.
It is not the only thing that must happen.
Yeah.
No, but it is
again, it's necessary, but it's not enough. Protests are necessary, but they are not enough.
It's a combination of a lot of things.
It is a combination. It is a combination of factors that we need to basically organize ourselves, because for decades they're always expected for a messiah, as someone who can fix their issues, and it's never been like it have never worked out. So it is more a matter of how we as a community can organize and do that extra sacrifice that, again, as I told in the previous episode, we have given a lot. People have sacrificed even their life for this, and they're in prison for this and being currently tortured for this. So we just need to figure out a way to push and manage to just make this change happen.
And I think that we're missing that key element of the military, unfortunately, and which is why I insisted on tugging on their heartstrings, if you will. Maybe that's not the right terminology to use, but my point is that without them, without having them turn on the regime, without their support, I do not see, unless some billionaire decides to buy all of them out of the country, which I don't know if they would because of an ego situation, then I don't know how else we could get out. So I still think that, I've been seeing a lot of messages from El Mundo calling to the military to do their duty, to uphold.
Again, there's a lot of things that
duty, everything.
Again, those type of messages are important and they're necessary. We don't have a crystal ball, and we're not inside of the on the discussions. We don't know if there are people discussing directly with them, if people of the opposition are discussing in secrecy, because it has to be in secrecy with with parts of the military that are helping just to make this happen. But again, another point that is relevant, we need to mentalize ourselves. And that's one of the main issues, that this is a long run. This is a long
this is a
battle.
marathon. This is not a sprint.
Yeah, this is a long battle to get this to happen. In theory, in my head, because the new term begins on January of next year. It is like, for me, that's a breaking point. Now it would be ideal, like, for them just to leave and make a transition period that something can go on until El Mundo can get to it. But I honestly am not counting it. I'm counting it that at least we need to hold on until January of next year. And to end note on a brighter end, we as Venezuelans has a precedent of throwing out dictatorships. They were with Marcos Pérez Jiménez on the 50s. It was brutal. It was he also stole an election, and the repression over those days were absurd. Over 40 days of just mass repression, mass incarceration. But at the end, he managed to leave the country, and we were the youngest democracy in Latin America. So again, we have been an example of democracy, and we have the precedent to make it again.
Let us know in the comments, what do you think about this episode? Again, we made this in English specially so that it may be a source of information. It's a basic summary of what is happening. Today is August 19th of 2024. I think it's important to date because maybe tomorrow something happens. So you never know.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Yeah, go ahead.
And if you want to have a deeper dive, I recently found a guy who speaks about this in English. Two sources mainly that can give you like maybe a more deeper perspective if you're interested.
Which we'll leave in the notes. Yeah.
But pray for Venezuela. Keep up the high hopes. There's still a lot of things to do. There will be grim days, but we're hoping to see the sun and see the shine soon enough.
And thank you very much for listening tonight or today. Please share with everybody. This is our droplet of assistance as we can to maintain this issue alive and to maintain the pressure alive in one of the ways that we can. So we ask you to please share it and give it a thumbs up so that the algorithm grabs it and distributes it and it keeps everything alive. Thank you very much for listening, and without further ado, we'll say goodbye. Bye-bye.